Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcana episode 69.
Nice.
Yeah, shit, couldn't get away with that one, huh? Anyway, the moistache is gone, isn't it? Is the moistache like
I mean,
the
it's.
moist?
I mean, I
It
don't know if it's
remains.
gone.
It's
It
kind
hasn't-
of
has
like
it
it's
been
not.
trimmed?
It's just yeah, it hasn't been trimmed. It's not. I feel like you got to keep that going. It is pretty epic. It fully stood in for me last week. It represents a whole nother host on this podcast, the moistache, the pog stash. Anyway, this week we're going to be talking about the recent tournament deck list, both at SCG Con. Be talking about Leon a bit. Also, we had set 6 revealed, which is crazy considering it feels like set 5 just came out. Set 5 also, I feel like if you're not in the tournament grinder sort of community, like set 5 doesn't feel like it was super explored. I mean, yes, there's decks, there's been innovations, but it doesn't really feel like, the past few sets that have been, really hammered out on a, like a digital client with streamers and all this content around it. Like, I feel like I'm still trying to get oriented in set 5, and it's already set 6, so sort of on the horizon. So that's an interesting change for sure. We also had a lore cast that announced some very interesting details regarding EU champs, NA champs, and then also like a preview to the World Championship. Anyway, just want to give you guys a chance to chime in as well. I didn't actually catch the lore cast myself, but I know you did, Kawa. Do you want to give us like a breakdown of some more details in regards to that?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the competitive stuff was kind of at the lower end of it, which makes sense because the big emphasis was on set 6 and revealing all of the new cards and new themes. So we're getting kind of like a pirate themed set. So a lot of the characters now have like pirate tags. Inventors is a big new like tribe or tag on a lot of the cards because they've introduced Big Hero 6. So you've got Hero Hamada and Baymax and all that type of stuff, which is really, really cool. I know a lot of people weren't sure if Big Hero 6 would like come into it too early or even if it would come into it because I don't know, previously I thought like they had some like Marvel ownage to that or whatever, but I'm glad it's in the game anyways because it's some pretty awesome characters. But yeah, relating to the EU championships and the NA championships, we already knew where they were taking place from the announcement from D23, but with the Storecast they announced the actual dates, and there is some important information to relay to you guys. So the EU championships will take place from the 6th to the 8th of December in Disneyland Paris Resort. For the NA Championships, will take place between the 10th and the 12th of January. This is in 2025 at the Disneyland Hotel at Disneyland Resort, California. And Worlds will take place. All we've seen so far is we know the location, which is going to be Disney World Orlando. But it's going to be during the month of March 2025. But the big thing that everyone wants to know about, because this wasn't clarified on the Lorecast, this was clarified afterwards. There will be last chance qualifiers for these events. So if you notice, it's from the 6th to the 8th, the 10th to the 12th. I'm pretty sure on the Friday there will be like the last chance qualifiers. We don't know how many tickets they're going to put up for these last chance qualifiers. It is going to be interesting because obviously there were more events in NA than there were in EU. So naturally there are going to be more players qualified for the NA championships compared to the EU championships. So curious to see if maybe NA championships they do less people can qualify through last chance qualifiers, or maybe more people, or vice versa for EU. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that split. But either way, it's good that they're going to have this opportunity where you can still attend this event, try your best to get in as a last minute thing. But also for me, honestly, like if I don't make it in Birmingham and I get to I play in the chance qualifiers in EU, like of course I'd love to make it, but I think it's a nice way of doing it because it means you can still enjoy the event. If you don't make it, you can kind of watch the qualifiers and stuff like that. I'm sure they do like a similar system in Flesh and Blood, right, Brendan? This type of stuff with last chance. No, they don't do last chance qualifiers. No,
I don't think so.
No?
Nah, but like the qualification system for Flesh and Blood is very robust. It's also extremely easy to qualify. Okay, extremely is probably not the right word, but you can also, there's a little bit of a trump card in Flesh and Blood where you can just buy a ticket. You can just buy what they call a PTI.
I almost qualified 2 worlds
without
ever having touched the game.
Yeah, which
wait,
is
you can just buy a ticket to Worlds? What?
No, you buy from a player, so like technically you can gift them. It's like everybody knows what it is. It's like it subsidizes, kind of being a pro player in a sense because you can acquire these invites, you can acquire multiples, and you can't use multiples, so you can gift them to people, so you sell them to people. Market rate $500 to $700. I would say that system. Well, it's nice. Like, you can always go to a pro tour. You can always go to a world championship, and you can compete if you want to. Even if you have no hope of winning, you can always just go have that experience. definitely does make it less prestigious. Like, there's nothing cool about being on the Flesh and Blood Pro Tour or the World Championship. Like, there's nothing that, like, yes, you can earn your spot, but you don't have to. So there's no mystique around it. I think that is a negative to it. Is it a negative enough that I would take away that system? Probably not. I think that, when it comes to like these big marquee events, whether it's going to be like the Flesh and Blood World Championships in Osaka this year, I think if you want to go and you want to compete, like, there's really no harm in that system, like, allowing you to do that. And because you have more disposable income, you can get into it. It's not like you're going to win. You're going to lose. Like, if you're buying PTIs, you're probably going to lose. Yeah. But, the loss in prestige, I don't think is enough of a negative that the whole system should be scrapped. But I don't really have positive feelings about this whole, you can buy an invite, stuff like that. But if you're more casual, it makes sense because, like grinding the local scene, grinding the qualifier scene, that's a real commitment. That is a financial commitment. That's a time commitment. Like, it's a lot. Also, even if it is easy enough to qualify, it's it's a lot of time.
My biggest concern, which might not be a concern in Flesh and Blood, I think, from what I understand, Flesh and Blood is a game where the better player wins a lot more often than the worst player in any given matchup, especially if the skill difference is like pretty big. But in a game where there's a lot of variance, I would not like to qualify to a world championship and then lose to a significantly worse player based on variance that bought their ticket.
Yeah, that would feel really bad. Yeah.
I also don't. I feel like Lorcana is also not that game. Lorcana is in my opinion, theoretically high variance game, but at least how it's playing out in the early days of Lorcana seems to be very low variance because of the, mostly in regards to the mulligan system, the replacement level of cards, and stuff like that. Like, very consistent. You have this very consistent game plan and opener. It does seem like the worst players often lose. But that being said, matchup variance is a real thing. If you did bring a deck that was particularly suited for a specific meta and you were trying to target a pro level meta, so something that should be more consistent, and let's say aggro was just like not supposed to be represented, you show up and there's like a few Timmies that bought tickets and they're on like hyper aggro decks and they just spike you out of the tournament. I think it feels bad. Would it hurt the integrity of the tournament? I mean, I don't think a lot. Like, that would just kind of be the risk you were taking if you knew that was a possible system. But I think overall Lorcana is like a pretty low variance game. I've been playing a bit of like Magic Vintage Cube in some off time because there's no other online game to play. And like, Magic's system is like it's really hitting me how much higher variance it is. It's a relatively high variance format, but it's mostly when it comes down to the mulligan. So like you're when you play Vintage Cube, it's like a turn 2, turn 3 kind of format. It's a limited format. It's a draft format. And what sucks about the Magic mulligan system, I think, is that you'll have a deck that has powerful cards in it that can win on turn 2 or turn 3, but when you draw an opening hand and it has a serviceable hand, like you have your lands, you have a few spells, but it's like a turn 4, turn 5 hand. It's not really what your deck's trying to do. You have to just keep it. And it's like, you just like, a lot of times you'll just lose those games because your opponent drew their turn 2, turn 3 hand. It's like, oh, my deck could do that, but I can't like aggressively I can't go down a card to go for this like possibility, because if I go down a card, I go to 6 cards and then I draw like a no lander or an all lander, then like I'm screwed. So like, that's what I really like the Lorcana mulligan system over that, where it's like, I feel like I lose a lot of agency with like a Magic mulligan and like Vintage Cube. It changes if you're playing like a high power constructed format in Magic where you could aggressively mulligan with a combo deck, but yeah, the Lorcana mulligan system gives you a lot of agency, I find.
I think Magic's a great game, but I hate both the mulligan and the resource system of that game.
Yeah, I come around on the resource system like being okay. It's definitely like a bell curve in terms of like my thoughts on it. Like, initially I hated it, then I was like, it's okay, and then now like I think it's okay, but I also kind of hate it. but it's really the mulligan system that I was like, but I understand there's a huge downside to Lorcana's mulligan. Like, it is very important that you know what you're doing. If you don't, like, there's a huge skill difference.
It's not a bad thing.
I think
yeah.
I was just gonna say I do really agree with you that I think the example you gave of like hyper aggro in a tournament is probably the biggest. The the best example where I think people can kind of come into a tournament like that and take games from you. I think besides that, it is very much a game of skill, especially in a 2-game format. If you do a blind mulligan and it's into hyper aggro and like you don't keep any removal cards because that's just not the game plan of your deck, then you can just lose the game, right? But I do not think that's a bad thing at all. I think that is a good thing. But I'm also glad that there's only kind of rare cases of it, and that for the most part, games are decided based on skill level for the most.
No, but I don't think I agree. I think while like the better player has a significant edge, I think I could lose any matchup to a mediocre player based on variance, like still pretty good amount of the time.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think that like what to your point, I agree with you like 1000% theoretically. I've just found that at least on the aggregate, it just hasn't played out like that. Like I mean, I think for like all three of us on this podcast, especially like at some of the set champs, like some of the lower level tournaments, they're like pretty insane win rates that were defying like all of our theory regarding Lorcana. Because I do think it's like a medium to higher variance game, but yeah, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to play out like that a lot. So I think the same thing. Like I'm like I could lose to anybody in this game. Like this game, like this game is pretty high variance, but it just it doesn't really pan out like that. I think over the like the larger scale of games I played in Lorcana. So I've kind of come back on that theory and been like, I guess the better player does win. I mean, honestly, maybe a little bit too much in Lorcana. It's like I think it's pretty daunting to be bad in Lorcana.
Yeah, but I don't think some people like if people think like they're bad or whatever. As if you could say it's pretty tough to not be great at the game. I think you can easily learn to be good at this game with you know what I mean. And there are like tiers of it, of like, once you understand kind of this system or that system, and like, actual like playing games with certain decks and stuff like that, play styles. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen some people that I wouldn't have considered to be the best at card games become quite good players.
It's like
you know what I mean?
Every green steel player, right?
And then they start listening to Podcana, and it's another level up, and you can't beat
No.
Every green steel player, every emerald player. No, I'm kidding. But TLDR, to answer your question, yeah, Flesh and Blood does not have last chance qualifiers.
Yeah. So with that's the headlines.
So
what do you guys think about this stuff? I didn't know if it was announced before. If it was not in my brain. Disneyland in California for NA champs, and then Disney World for Worlds. That
was
I don't know
before.
Okay, that that might sound like I feel like I didn't know about that. I guess that is actually a big deal, because I remember we speculated on that a lot. It was like, oh, will these actually be in the parks? Oh, that stuff. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like a real endorsement. It makes sense, but that could I'm surprised still. It makes sense, but I'm still surprised because we all speculated on that. But that was like optimal scenario. I still thought it would be in like some shitty convention center in like fucking, I don't know, North Dakota or something.
They've also like I don't know, I feel like they've like matched everything up so well with just like the theme of like Disney, but also like logistically, because like if you think about it, NA championships being in California makes sense for all the NA players. I am personally glad, it's probably a very minute detail, but I am glad that Worlds is on like East Coast of America for all of the European people who have to travel and stuff like that. I like that Worlds is in Disney World. I like that the promo they're giving out at the event is going to be a whole new world. Like all of these things they clearly have thought about. So, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, like March 2025 is actually quite a while away, but it just sucks that like it doesn't suck that they're trickling out the information, but I just want to know more. Like I'm just excited. You know what I mean? I really, really, really want to know more, because I feel like we like what happened was like, I don't know. I was expecting more details during this lore cast about, actually talking about, last chance qualifiers, how many players, can be expected, and just like kind of going into it a little bit deeper. And they're like, well, at D23 they announced the venues. At this, they just announced the dates. And then we have to wait, another 2 or 3 months for stuff, but they know what they're doing, right?
That's so much better than Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is 5 years old, and they used to tell us about Pro Tours like 1 month before. You want to know why, by the way?
What?
And I bet this is the same reason for Ravensburger. Because they don't know. They're probably figuring it out. It's actually logistically, a lot of this stuff is it's a lot to deal with. Like Flesh and Blood didn't have a venue for the World Championship in Barcelona for like the longest time. It was like the biggest, worst kept secret in Flesh and Blood. They just like straight up didn't have a venue.
That sucks as well, because if it gets to a stage where like I don't know, like right now no one's qualified for Worlds, so if we didn't know where the venue was, it's fine. But if people are qualified and you're trying to plan travel and stuff and nothing's announced of where it's actually on, 3 weeks before, sorry, yeah, you have to spend X amount of money because we waited so long. Sorry, you just have to get to the venue, you know?
Yeah. And when it comes to LCQs and stuff, too, I think they also like they might not be sure exactly like the logistics, the numbers. Like I think they're kind of figuring it out as they go to an extent.
Yeah, in Hearthstone, the biggest problem was sometimes they figured out stuff so late and publicized it that like they announced a system where you already acquired points, but you didn't know how you acquired them, and then they told you, okay, in these past months, this and this gave that points.
Flesh and Blood
like now
just
these points
that,
also count for Grandmaster.
Wait, so you didn't know?
Yeah, so the first Grandmaster League, it was top 8 points earners from that year qualified, and they announced it after the year was over.
Yep. Flesh and Blood just did that with the they did so at the World Championship in Osaka. They're like, by the way, there's going to be a team tournament where you represent your country, 3v3, and they're like, by the way, it's the top 3 players ranked in ELO for each country. It was like, by the way, all these low level tournaments that actually count towards ELO that you didn't know about, that you guys have been playing for fun, that may have knocked you out of the top 3, those matter. You're not going.
No. That's not a great feeling.
So that's interesting though, because like I'm curious as that example, right? Like, so however late they announced that or whatever, but is that for, and when they say your country, right? Like there's a lot of countries in the world, right? So does that mean that basically the top 3 like but like does that mean that at a stage it's just like, okay, like the top 3 players from this country just get an invite to Worlds for X event, or do you have to sign up to say, no, I want to play in team? I don't know, like let's say the best player in the States, like the best player in the States wants to actually play in like I don't know, like the normal World Championships, but they can't play in both, like these kind of situations.
Different days.
Okay,
they're on different days. But the what you're asking is more like, okay, so you're in the top 3 of Poland, and you're not going. Does the 4th guy get to go?
Yeah.
I think it tosses down.
Also, on regarding now Euros coming up on Twitter, I was asked by I think someone who finished 5th in Bologna. Do I think Ravensburger will provide accommodation?
No.
And like for Euros and national like NA, I think it's like almost impossible. But for Worlds,
absolutely not. By the way,
you don't think for Worlds? No,
0% chance.
Oh wow, okay.
What? Why not?
I would bet my life savings on it. I
mean, how big of a tournament would you?
Why would they? There's no chance. Why would they do that? They don't even put up prize money. Why would they provide you accommodation?
I mean, that is the highest level. It's the biggest tournament.
What game provides accommodation right now?
Hearthstone did for championships.
Hearthstone did back in the fucking
I don't
day,
think I don't know. I mean, I don't know now, but like if they tried to do it now, I don't even know if they'd be like, here's Well, okay, like, it's like maybe, right? Because it's like sure, company like. Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, it was a company like Blizzard who at the time had fucking so much money, you know what I mean? So
not even that. It's the golden age. Like Magic used to have this pro system that was like based off I don't know, clubs, and if you were in like you could be like a gold pro, platinum pro, and they would comp certain things based off that, and you could get buys and tournaments. Scrap that whole system. They're not going to comp flights. They're not going to comp accommodation.
I think for Worlds it's possible. Also,
I want it to be possible, but
what if for physical TCGs we are like now approaching a new golden age? There's so many new games doing well.
Yeah, but it's going the wrong way. Like, so yes, there are a lot of games coming out, but it's gonna have the opposite effect where these everybody's gonna try to get into the market. Most people are gonna launch some half-baked, just trash stuff to try to cash in. And that's gonna that's mostly the innovation you're gonna get is like, or that's mostly how the market is gonna respond is people coming out with half baked products more than someone's gonna really try to innovate and get something good on the market. Because like I don't know, it's just I don't think it's the golden age of pro play. Like people, I mean, most of these companies just realize that stuff doesn't hit the bottom line. Like trying to sell, like a fucking X product, like a commander product or multiplayer product or like a new kind of foil or a new kind of chase card. Like the TCG market, in my opinion, in my ignorant opinion, has learned over the years what makes money and what doesn't. And comping or like incentivizing pro play by adding a bunch of prize pool or comping players. Like it just doesn't do it, and I don't
No,
think
I
they're
think
ever going back
I
to
still
that.
think it does. I think you're wrong.
Bro, I think I think you just you can't you're just trying to manifest this.
I kind of I want to believe it, Moyne, but the more Brendan says it, it is kind of, I don't know.
Nah, but
maybe
We don't even have.
it's kind of the real
We don't
world,
even have
like-
prize money in Lorcana, which is
That's
fine. The
fine.
cards are worth a lot of money, but that in terms of like
What's so?
current TCGs that are on the market, that's pretty freaking bottom tier. Like Flesh and Blood, and I'm not even a huge fan of that game right now. Puts up $1.5 million, and this game is way more popular than that game. Like why? I don't think that Lorcana has any incentivization to just take money away from their bottom line to try to comp pro players. Like it will actually increase the popularity of their game.
It's not expensive at all. With Worlds, it's like how big would it be if it's like 32 players, 16 players? It's not that expensive to pay travel and accommodation.
Okay.
And also
maybe. I'll side with you on a maybe.
Is it impossible
like 16
there's prize
players.
pool at Worlds? Maybe they
No.
have some
No,
extra
no chance.
prize
No,
pool.
I don't
chance.
think so. They will be.
You
They've
don't
already.
think so?
They've already shown it off. They showed off like there's going to be like a world champion Mickey card. That's a one of one, pretty much. Yeah.
Maybe plus a few K.
Plus a few. Plus a few
No.
enchanted cards. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No way. No
The
way.
enchant-
No
the
way.
enchanted
Okay.
set.
I will actually bet my life savings against prize money
Okay.
if they
You
comp.
wouldn't bet
the-
against like your life money.
Okay,
against,
accommodation
comp.
for 16 people.
Yeah.
Fuck,
I mean, I
maybe.
think there's no reason not to do that.
Well, I can give you a reason.
Yeah, the money, but
Extra money
that
in my
much.
pocket.
Okay, and with that, yeah, that's the headlines. We'll be discussing, deck lists from previous tournaments that happened this past weekend. But we're going to jump into the Spilled Ink section. This is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to leave a comment down below, and also leave a comment in our Discord. Link to the Discord in the video description. I usually try to grab one or two from there as well. All right, starting off, first comment is from Niheinbao. Says, I think Moyen's mustache is a sufficient stand-in for Brendan. They've got the same level of awesome. That is true. This isn't the only comment about the mustache. A lot of people loved the mustache last week, so I think if the people want it, it's staying. Am I right, Moyen?
You can't just casually walk
Maybe.
up with a stash like that.
I know it was meant as just one episode thing, but the feedback was very positive. So maybe I'll bring it
You
back.
need to start doing the fresh lobster thing with that. Start twirling.
No, I'm
Oh,
not doing
yeah. Yeah. Next comment is from Aaron Fongers 9397. Spilled Ink question: as we're moving further into set 5 metagame, is there a specific archetype of Amber Steel song that's more preferable for matchups against the rest of the meta? I see builds that either favor a Piglet, Daisy, Mr. Smee approach for an aggro tempo, or builds that favor a variety of shift targets, Robin Hood, Queen, Cinderella, but not a lot of early questing power for more of a mid-range approach. Would love your thoughts on which seems more suited to the current meta. So what are your guys' thoughts on the differences between these? Because I think naturally a lot of the decks that we have been seeing in these tournaments, I mean, if you guys scroll down on our document here, we can just see an example of one. There are still the shift targets in here, but I don't think it's going for the full aggression with the daisies and stuff like that. I think that's definitely a route that you can go. But I think there's a balance that you can have between the choices that you make.
I think that what they said is absolutely accurate. It depends on the meta. So if I look at the meta at Lyon, for instance, like if you look at the top 8, it's kind of dominated by, I don't know, somewhat slower decks. So there's a lot of red blue in there. There's even a red purple. Seems like the more aggressively slanted version would have been a decent pick into that. But if you get a top 8 that's a bunch of ruby amethyst potentially, and then also these steel decks. So whether it's steel, it's blue steel or something like that, then maybe not on the more aggressively slanted version. So I think it depends on the meta, and the meta seems to be quite different tournament to tournament right now. Like I'm not seeing as much of a sort of.
I mean, I think still
myopic.
What's going to all of these tournaments is like the theme of red, blue, amber, steel being two of them, if not the two most played decks. So I think with that context alone, I would personally favor the more aggressive builds with some early questers, like Daisy and Piglet. I think Smee, in any version, I would play for Smee of Amber Steel. But yeah, Daisy, Piglet, I think I would favor right now. But even if they're not better in every matchup, but I really like how that deck favors into red blue. Basically, I think if you don't go down this route a little bit, you will be there will be a big risk of getting 2-0'd by red blue. So and with a few early questas, it increases your chance of winning the game going first as Ember Steel by so much that it at least makes it very difficult for the red blue player to 2-0 you.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Next comment is from Johnny BG2XX. Are tournament wins and top finishes how one should pick a deck list? I know Moyen is a competitive player, but why would I pick his green-purple list over Earlmeisters, for example? I'm going to just respond. I did respond to this comment, so I'm going to read out my comment, and then we can have a discussion about it and see if you guys agree or not. So my response was, I'm personally not a fan of Earlmeister's list in general, but that's besides the point. I would rather analyze tournament results as some inspiration for deck building, as these players competing in these events should be competent enough to judge the field to the best of their ability and hence decide to include certain cards and make certain deck building choices based on the expected metagame of the tournament. Like we discussed, I'm not a fan of saying a deck list is good based on Pixelborn Connect testing. Don't get me wrong, I love Pixelborn Connect as a tool, but the matchups you will experience on that platform are nowhere near close to the quality of player and deck building skill you should expect at a challenge. Again, this is all my own opinion. I would personally always look at tournament results and rate them higher than general Pixelborn decks. Would you guys agree with that? Or
would you like a Marvel Snap parallel? What do you look at? You looking at Infinite Conquest decks? You looking at top 200?
Honestly, for Marvel Snap, and like it's a very different.
Well, I don't think it's actually that
no,
different, but
I think there's honestly
no
tournaments in
more
Marvel
useless
Snap
than an Infinite Conquest deck. Like
an Infinite Conquest. Well,
Conquest?
like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like nobody plays that format.
It's a completely different thing from Marvel Snap, and if you want to get into it, we definitely get into it because I've been playing a lot of Snap recently. For me, honestly,
shit, he's back on the you're back on the wagon. Where'd you get all the money to afford that?
For me in Snap, I'll just go to Untapped and I'll have a look at some of the top deck lists, and I won't look at any of the Conquest stuff. And I'll just jam a list and I'll make changes. And I think Snap is in a place where honestly, if you like to play a certain archetype, and you understand play lines for it, like you can play it well. For me in general, like it's very, very different though, because I would in no way compare Conquest and Marvel Snap to tournaments in Lorcana. Absolutely, positively not. I would compare
Conquest to Pixelborn Connect results.
I would I wouldn't even compare ladder results of Marvel Snap to Pixelborn Connect results. Like I would say, like, if you're in the top 100 players of Marvel Snap, I would rate your deck choice higher than Pixelborn Connect deck lists.
That's what I'm saying, though. I'm saying Conquest is useless, like Pixelborn Connect is virtually useless.
Sure.
Okay, but
top 100 Infinite is similar to actual tournament results in Lorcana.
Sure, like, I'll agree with that. Yeah,
where the actual competitive players are competing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yeah, but for example, I think we need to talk about something. I've only played one Pixelborn Connect game, but it sounds like the competition isn't great there for me. What you guys are saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the complete opposite when we had normal Pixelborn hardcore ladder, the top ranks.
Yeah,
I would like that. I would put a lot of weight in.
I put that over
sure.
tournaments, by the way.
For
I would put that over
It's
like an SCG 2K or something. I would if Pixelborn rank 1, I would 100% put that over.
But I think that's kind of the difference, because it's like that was like an unofficial digital ladder. Like I don't know what the difference is.
Pixelborn Connect.
Yeah, but there's got to be some disparity of, like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying this because I'm not playing the top ranks of Pixelborn Connect, but like I mean, I don't know. I remember, like, yesterday I was playing Pixelborn Connect and I paired into someone that was in like the top 10, I think. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that should happen because I'm not in the top 10 of Pixelborn Connect, and it could be the whole thing of, there's not enough games going on, not people playing at the same time. But I just think in general, I don't know. Some of the deck lists that I've seen from like the top stuff on Pixelborn Connect, I just haven't really rated that highly. So
okay, so basically what it comes down to, we have like different levels and ways of competing, and from our own experiences and from your experiences, I think you should kind of form your opinion on the level of competition in these tournaments, and that should play a role in how much do you rate either of those results. But also the question is now, I guess it is between tournament top finish, but also why my players over like the the list from Pixelbond Connect.
Mhm.
I think there's so many levels to this question, and after we've discussed them, there's another level. But okay, so I would say yes, tournaments. I couldn't myself yet really assess the level of play in Pixelbond Connect, but if it's not super high, it's probably should be rated lower than at least the big tournaments that we've yet had in Set 5, the ones where maybe we have like above 100 players. But even in these bigger tournaments, I think you can easily find a lot of, or at least me personally, I found a lot of the list that I wasn't the biggest fan of. And so even when analyzing these tournaments, even if you should put weight into those results, it doesn't just mean, okay, someone won, like the first place of this tournament is now the best version of that build just because they got first place. So at the end of the day, even if you should weight those more, I think, and also, okay, why should you pick any player's deck list over a deck list that would well in a tournament? You definitely don't have to. I would personally put much bigger weight on a deck list of a player that I respect a lot and where I think, okay, I'm confident in this guy's that this guy knows what he's doing, what he's talking about, and then I will respect that deck just based on that. But even then, at the end of the day, you shouldn't copy anyone's deck. I think you should form your own opinion.
I can give you guys a good reason why too.
Mhm.
SCG Con 2K, 66 players, first place.
This is the exact example I was gonna say. Moyen literally said, "Oh, if people win a tournament, don't just copy to that. I will, because this is the perfect example."
Well,
I'm sorry to put in.
Well, I gotta give the list. I gotta give a moment of silence for the listener. So first place, SCG Con 2K. We have an Amber Emerald list, very reliant on drawing, some combo-esque kind of cards. Moment of silence while you, as the listener, ponder. How many cards do you think are in that deck list?
Bro, I fucking lost it when I saw this shit. Honestly, I lost my mind. So, little story.
Raise your hand if you thought 60. You're wrong. You're wrong. No, not minimum card count. No, absolutely
63. Not. Absolute maniac. So, I'm going to give a little bit of a story here because if we were talking about meta last week, I wasn't really too high on this color combination. It is the color combination that I played in Toronto. I do love the deck list a lot, but I didn't really see it performing too well. I didn't really rate it too highly. I don't think I got too many new tools within the new set. Maybe You're Welcome was like the main card that was added to a lot of these decks. And when I saw a tweet from, I think it was from Frank Carson, because he actually played in this event as well, the 2K in Tampa. And I saw it was DeCandio on Amber Steel versus Amber Emerald in the final. He was 1-0 up. That's the tweet I saw. I was like, right, DeCandio's after winning another event. Amber Steel is still on top. And then I come back and I see, oh, Amber Emerald actually won. Hype, let's go see the deck list. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? I was like hyped to see that this deck can still hold its own in this metagame. Maybe there's definitely an argument for it because yes, it is a very combo heavy deck. But the example, exactly what you said, Moyen. Did I say, oh, Amber Emerald's back, I'm going to copy this winning list and start playing? No, I instantly fucking saw the number of cards, changed that shit, and then also made other adjustments to the deck list myself. So, like, that's the prime example of, like, don't just see a winning list, oh, I'm going to play this and I'm going to win all my games,
Yeah, I have to take back something I said earlier in the podcast. I did say that Lorcana was a low variance game, a relatively low variance. I take back everything. If you can win with 63 card deck, it's a high variance game.
But that's the problem. Okay, so the 63 cards is worse than 60 cards, right?
In a specific combo deck, I mean, it should be in any deck,
no,
but
no,
in
no,
this
no, no,
deck
no, no,
specifically.
No. Objectively, in every fucking deck that's ever existed, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong.
But so the problem with it is it doesn't increase the variance by that much. Like the amount, like you don't lose that much. The reason we hate it is because it is factual that you do lose on percentages.
There's a
no
percentage
upside.
lost. Yeah.
All downside.
So go ahead, Moyen.
In the end, just to finish the thought, I think also decks for any tournaments are contextual. We've seen in the same meta it shift numerous times. There's different expected metas for these fields. So like you have to really try to understand what these cards are in there for. Maybe they were good for that expected metagame. Maybe they weren't, and they just still did well. But like to really analyze why is the deck built the way it is, and what do I personally think of that.
But there's a 62 card RA deck in this top 8 as well.
Yeah, the worst thing is these because these decks
Shame
keep
on
winning
you, REB
events.
Dreams. What the heck is
because
that?
these events keep winning games, people think it's like, oh, it's fine.
Nah,
Other people are doing it. It's fine.
That. Bro, we beat that horse into the ground, and then we had Frank on. Like, it is wrong. And there was a time when, like, we had to deal with comments on this podcast, and we're like, well, what about? Like, no, it's just wrong. Like, it is just fucking statistically, it is just statistically worse. Even if it's a small percentage, it's just like you're taking a clip for. So Frank Carson made one reasonable argument against this. Like, if to put it in the most blunt, worst way possible, if you're too dumb to take out the right card, and you would do more damage to yourself by trying to use your own intellectual thought in order to take a card out of the deck, and you're going to do damage to your deck because you're going to take out the good card, then yeah, maybe run the 62. But other than that, you should run minimum card count. Like, and I don't want to hear the niche case where it's like, what if you get milled? That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. That's a 0.001% of every scenario that could possibly happen to you right now. So irrelevant. You run the minimum card count in this game. That is correct. I don't know. The only argument is like, okay, if you just couldn't take out the right card, okay, maybe you put in this card. That's all. There's nothing else.
Yep.
And who takes that? And like, yep, that's me. I'm that guy. I'm gonna run the 62. Couldn't take out the bad card. I feel like at set 5, we're going into set 6. Blows my mind. We're still seeing 62, 63s.
Yeah, there's some things that will never change.
Bro, it will change. Like, what are we gonna be like? Set 18? There's like what? There's just there. I mean, yeah, it's wild. But at least you see the bet. Like, there's definitely some recognizable names in the SCG 2K top 8. Every single one of those recognizable names is running 60 cards now, which didn't used to be the case. We even got the Candio on a 60 card deck. Came around.
All right, so the next comment is from Cool AB Painters. They say, I don't see cards. I don't want to see your faces. If you don't want to see our faces, if you go to the link in the description, there is an audio version. If you go to the link in the description, deck lists that we talk about are right there. So if you feel like you want to bypass us, feel free. But I'll guarantee you're missing out on some great content.
Really missing out on a big mustache, that's for sure.
Yep. The next comment is from PsychoSmurf96. Hey, creator of the John deck here. So, Brandon, to give some context, there was a deck that myself and Moyen kind of shit on last week that did relatively well in the tournament.
You did so more.
I did shit on the deck quite a bit, and I will say in the comments of our last podcast, I did say I kind of apologized, but the person himself also said I recognize that the list looks like jank when you initially look at it, so it's like, I probably have to play it a little bit. But basically, the person said, hey, creator of the John deck here. The build I ran Saturday was like a version 2 of the concept. The version I've updated to after the weekend replaced Triton with the Queen, Diviner, and the 61st card, Noi, with a second Apple. The deck definitely looks like a pile of cards, so I completely understand the assessment. The Noi, I have no idea what FWIW means. Was just for what it's worth, was just supposed to be hard to deal with lore pusher that could pick off weaker characters in the pinch, but at the end of the day, it's supposed to play like a prison strategy. It's definitely a weird deck to pilot and needs reps, but I wouldn't count it out completely, but I could be biased. So, Brendan, I'm sure we'll show you this deck after, but Moyen, like, you can't blame me initially. I look at this deck and I see like the fucking plank, I see poison apple, I see like the great sword or some shit like this. I'm like, what the hell is this deck list?
No, and there was a lot of things that I think even for that deck idea it seemed kind of off, but my point was more, if it did so, okay, it doing well doesn't just suddenly mean this exact deck list is insane, but maybe they were still onto something, because like I would wager that deck can be optimized, it can be built significantly better, and then maybe there's something there. So with the core plan just being like with this Prince John item recursion that actually is used as removal to get tempo and value out of the John. So I was just entertaining the idea of the deck because of those
Sure.
reasons.
Few people in the comments definitely got mad at me for that, saying like, you shouldn't call someone's deck list shit, he did well in the tournament and stuff. And I'm like, I mean, and what's funny is the person who made the deck actually like agreed with me to the fact that sure, initial impressions makes it look like this, but again, I shouldn't probably judge a deck list based purely on that. The last point we're going to get into, this comment was left by Rayo in our Discord. Again, feel free to join the Discord down below, guys, if you guys are looking to just interact with more competitive Lorcana players. There's a bunch of us there. So Rayo says, hello, folks. Recently, at an event, I went to Pile Shuffle. My opponent sternly told me that pile shuffling was illegal at the start of the event. TLDR, I did a ton of reading and videos watching, and now I know that pile shuffling is bad for numerous reasons. I took to Reddit to better diffuse this information to the community and find out more about the exact rules about pile shuffling or pile sorting, as I've come to think of it. After talking to the community about this subject, it has become clear that there are tons of players that don't know about the perils of pile sorting. Some insist that it helps to randomize. It doesn't. Some really experienced card game players immediately assume that anyone that pile shuffled in front of them must be attempting to slow play or cheat, and aren't just ignorant like I was. You all do a great job explaining math related subjects and also card game etiquette things, so I figured you could help to educate folks that are new to TCG tournaments, but also make it clear to your really experienced listeners that it is rude to put your opponent on blast for starting to pile shuffle, and it is certainly not illegal as it was told to me. It turns out that it is just fraud, and you should not do it, because once you are educated, you realize it makes you look like you are cheating. The one thing I'm going to add to this comment before I'll let you guys step in is at the recent Toronto challenge event, I remember I was watching a game or walking by tables or whatever, and this exact situation did actually kind of occur. I saw someone started pile shuffling and the opponent instantly raised their hand, called judge, and called judge over, said, oh, they're pile shuffling, and the judge said, yeah, the judge said that yeah, you shouldn't pile shuffle. It's considered time wasting. That's
yeah. So like the games, they can make a rule against it being slow play, but it's so what? So in like, yeah, so in Lorcana, so in a game like Magic, when you you can pile shuffle to situate the cards in non-random ways. In Magic, you can do something called mana weaving. So if you have all your mana stacked together and then you pile shuffle, like a certain number of cards, like they would be, X number down, you would have your land at like the perfect time pretty much every single time. And that's like a very basic thing that someone would do at like a pre-release. It's just like a silly Timmy way to cheat. But yeah, pile shuffling is inherently non-random. The thing is like, a lot of the best players in the world pile shuffle. You can watch high-level MTG coverage at the Pro Tour. You can watch high-level SCG coverage in the past where players like Reed Duke would pile shuffle. The thing is they don't just pile shuffle. They pile shuffle, and then they shuffle the deck. That's what makes it random. Yeah, pile shuffling just subverts a lot of the, like, your arbitrary number of shuffling, and it just keeps it, like, I think it's a way to have an initial disperse. Because in a game like Magic, you could have, like, especially in a game like Flesh and Blood as well, you'd have, like, certain cards that would just be inherently clumped, and you kind of want to just randomize the deck more.
No, but that doesn't randomize it more, as you said, because it doesn't randomize anything. And if you're doing it to unclump something, that's like inherently. I mean, if you're gaining,
I think they unclump and then they always shuffle after, though. That's the thing. You can't just pile shuffle, but pile shuffling is not.
So maybe they don't. I guess okay. So I guess lots of it is based on superstition, but if you're going at it logically, it just means if you're unclumping cards and then okay, you do the normal shuffle, you kind of just don't believe in your shuffling skills sufficiently randomizing your deck, because otherwise it wouldn't be necessary. And then if you are not shuffling enough, I think in this comment they also said, okay, they did pile shuffle and then 4 mass shuffles. I mean, if it did have any effect on now your deck being in a different layout, then you improved the chances of like the cards that were clumped before.
But your opponent is supposed to shuffle as well. Like,
I mean, yes, they can, but
they shuffle your deck.
It's not their job. I mean, first of all, it's your job to sufficiently shuffle your deck.
I think that pile shuffling. So the one thing I push back on is I think it just like it has a huge benefit, which is you get to count the cards in your deck and you get to count the cards in your opponent's deck potentially, and those are extremely relevant numbers. Like to know if you have like if one card fell on the floor, got left in the deck box.
I don't think I'm ever counting if I'm pile shuffling though. I don't think
every single time.
No, I don't think
I don't. I mean, if you pay attention, I don't think the card just goes out the window.
There's if you play a card game for more than a couple of years, there's going to be a situation where you have 59 cards in your thing. Like it has definitely happened to me once. I've been presented cards that were or decks that were below 60 cards multiple times in Flesh and Blood, even at Pro Tour level events.
I mean, it
Like,
hasn't
I
happened
mean,
to
it
me
just
yet.
happens. Like, it's a human mistake. And also in Flesh and Blood, like counting. I mean, I know I'm talking about Flesh and Blood, but it's just like the game I played at like Pro Tours and World Championships a lot. Like knowing the amount of cards in your opponent's deck is very important. Also in Lorcana it would be very important. I mean, it's relatively important. I would like to know if my opponent's playing 63 cards.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't know what the rule on that is right now.
Yeah, I also don't know the rule for that.
You can't
I
count the
don't-
cards in your opponent's deck.
I mean, I doubt you're just like, yeah, I want to shuffle your deck, and then you're like,
Well,
if
count
you,
it
if
out.
you shuffle someone's deck, there's like, how would you make a rule against it? Like if you would have to say you're not allowed to pile shuffle your opponent's deck or something
yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
because
but
you are not. I mean,
the number of
technically-
cards in your opponent's deck, I thought, is it not public to you? How? Because you
No,
as
it's
the
not.
opposing player have to know that they're. How do you know
I
they're
mean,
not playing
I
an
guess
illegal
their
deck?
deck count at all times is public, right? So
Yeah.
I guess as soon as the game starts, maybe you could just go and count the rest of their deck. I'm not sure you can do it before.
Well, how do you know if you can't count your opponent like amount of cards in your opponent's deck? How do you know they're presenting a legal deck?
I mean, you can do it as soon as. I mean, also, you never know your opponent's presenting a legal deck. Like, you don't see the other side of those cards. It might be 5 Maleficents in there, and you can't. Like, it's not your job to always prove that they have a perfect
A
deck.
legal deck, yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
the job on the judges.
I would often I would pile shuffle at like PTs and Worlds. I mean, actually, I do it every single time in Fab because like it not only does it check card count, but it also checks for cheating. Like you can see sleeves, so as you pile shuffle, you can see not like I pile shuffle my deck in Flesh and Blood every single time before a match because when my sleeves are broken or they're marked, I replace them while in that pile shuffle. I even do this in Lorcana as well. Pile shuffling is not the only shuffling I do, but that's how I check for sleeves. That's how I check for my opponent's sleeves as well.
I think you
Like-
should check after your round's over, not when your round
Why?
has started. Because it wastes time.
But things can. I mean, it depends. Like, I guess
What
it
does
does
it
waste
depend?
time.
It does waste time.
Like it
yeah.
is. Like, I don't know. I feel like my whole pot process would be about as quickly as a normal person shuffling. I
Yeah,
don't know.
okay.
It's just like
because
pile shuffling has
shuffling-
so many other merits that are not related to randomization. Like it's related to
it
integrity
has zero
of the deck.
merits that are related to randomization. So when your job is now to randomize the deck, I don't think pile shuffling should have any.
I think
part in that.
I think I can agree with the sleeve checking thing. I don't know about the card count thing because as Moyen said, like I don't know, like so sure if they're playing a 59 card deck or whatever, or like Moyen said, what if they're literally playing like 8 copies of a certain card in their deck? Like how are you gonna know? You know?
Well, I mean, it's both sides, right? You're also checking your own deck to make sure that you have every card out on the board right now because you're
I think
shuffling.
I'm usually confident I have every card most of the time.
I think just in between rounds is that's the time to really do those things to make sure your deck's in order.
I feel like
but-
it's more. This is more of like. I don't think you can objectively disagree with the player, like unless you're like hardcore. This takes more time, and it's wrong because it takes more time. Like you can't really say there's anything wrong about doing an integrity check on your deck and your opponent's deck via a legal method before the match to check for that kind of stuff. You can say it's not random, but this occurs before you're
No,
robustly shuffling.
For example, okay, so I've never pile shuffled. Okay, didn't have a long physical TCG history.
Mhm.
It's like a little bit more than a year old, but I've never pile shuffled in my life. And when my opponent pile shuffles, I think if I recognize there's like more than enough time, I don't even say anything. I just pay a little bit
on
more
the
attention to them
same,
actually
yeah.
randomizing the deck
Yeah.
after, or maybe I shuffle their deck as well. But if there's any chance of getting into a time scramble in best of 2, usually there's no incentive to doing that, but later in top cut there definitely is. And then if there's any chance of there being a time scramble, I do say, okay, this doesn't actually randomize your deck, and it can be considered slow play. You shouldn't pile shuffle. You cannot pile shuffle. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just been so many, there's definitely just such a non-zero amount of encounters I've had at, like, very high-level events where
Mhm.
I've pile shuffled my opponent's deck, whether it was in limited or constructed. They've had broken sleeves. They've had marked sleeves. Like,
You've pile shuffle your opponent's deck. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more worried about their card count and their sleeve integrity than my sleeve integrity because, like you said, I can check mine in between rounds. I check theirs during the match. My friend made top 8 of the first Flesh and Blood Pro Tour because his opponent, for his winning in, pile shuffled his deck. His opponent was cheating. His opponent had marked cards, like had legit marked cards on a single legendary card that exists in the deck, so they could see the top of it in a deck. That would have to you were heavily incentivized. You would greatly rewarded for knowing what card was on top of your deck. He was fucking cheating. He got DQ'd right there.
And okay, that's one possible merit of it, but I think that's not really our job as players. I think there's random deck checks during the game. You can try to pay some attention to it, and then before and in top cut there's deck checks as well. So because I think it doesn't randomize, it can be used as a way to adjust your deck in an illegal way. And I lost my train of thought. But I just don't really see any reason for it to exist.
Can you? Here's a question. Can you call a judge over any time and ask or say to them, can you deck check my opponent? I think they're cheating.
From what I understand, I think you can just say, "Can you check their deck for more cards or something like that?" I mean,
yeah, right. If you say like after the game, you just say, "Oh, I think some of their cards looked a little bit weird."
Yeah.
Could you try check that?
You can do it during. I mean, I've had it happen multiple times during matches.
It's also the whole translucent thing. Have you guys seen that? That's a big thing I've seen pull up at challenges where some of the sleeves, like you can see the card back, so they tell them to re-sleeve their deck because the rule in Lorcana is you're not supposed to see the card back. And that could be a thing for marked cards as well, because imagine there are certain sleeves where, I don't know, are translucent and then other ones that aren't translucent, you know? So
Yeah,
or maybe on the back of the cards there's a mark that you see to the translucent sleeve.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. Like
we had a new cheating incident in One Piece.
Oh yeah. Is this another card coming up from the table, Moyen?
No, it was much better than that. They had installed a still frame that was covering part of the actual video footage when they activated it to then have someone else change the order of their deck and manipulate their deck.
Oh my god. So they were running like a virtual camera where they like put the image up. Someone's there probably actually taking the deck and then putting it back. That's so weird, bro.
And then someone actually noticed somehow, because like I watched the footage and at first I didn't know what was going on, but then when you know where you have to look, you see one card in the deck's like 1 millimeter different. But like it doesn't even move. It's just like from one frame to the next, it's in a different position.
Jesus.
Well, if you play One Piece, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's how it works.
I mean, I think in the non-webcam tournaments, it's fine. It's just the webcam tournaments.
Yeah. Webcam is just such a shit show. Yeah, I don't know. The pile shuffling thing is interesting. I don't disagree that it's not a random way to shuffle the deck. I've seen it for years in the highest level of Magic play and Magic coverage, players doing this. And it happens at the highest level of Flesh and Blood. And a lot of it is just an integrity check. And I think that it has a high level of efficacy for doing that. And
I think people being used to doing it is one thing, but I personally am a fan that in this game it is often considered slow played, and there's something you can do about it, and you don't have to accept your opponent pile shuffling with 10 minutes on the clock in the best of
I think
three.
that's I agree.
I've
in
definitely
that
sat in those
situation.
scenarios where you get the Timmies that are like slow shuffling.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, as well, or at least it's like Moyen said, it's nice to be able to call a judge and say, well, like, there is 10 minutes left, we have 10 minutes to play a game, my opponent is going to benefit to go, right, I'm going to pile shuffle. It's like, at least I have the power to do something about this, and I can't just accept that they're going to slow play me to fucking, you know what I mean?
I've never called, so far I've never called a judge for someone pile shuffling. I just said, we don't have time for this, and then they're like, oh yeah, my bad. Shuffles normally.
I think that when I pile shuffle my opponent's deck, I'll find a marked sleeve 20% of the time. And I just flick it out of the pile and I say, hey, can you replace that sleeve? And they replace it.
And I think that's also quite fair. to be honest.
Well, honestly, I could leave it in there and then I could just get them DQ'd. Like, I mean, it's a pretty nice thing to do.
It's not always a DQ. I think.
I know, but you can get
like,
them a game loss or something. Like, you can take advantage of that. It's like a pretty nice thing to do.
I think in Lorcana right now, it's if there's no pattern, it's a warning.
It's a warning. Yeah.
At most.
Yeah.
Okay, so but I think we are missing part of the question, and I want to come back to that. And it's not about should you pile shuffle, should you not? What are the merits and downsides? It's more like, okay, how should you handle it if someone pile shuffles? Because while I think you should say something. Someone pile shuffling doesn't excuse you being rude to them. Someone pile shuffling doesn't necessitate that they are cheating. I think 95% of those people, they are just superstitious or they're used to this. Cheating is not the reason they're doing it. So there's no reason to immediately be rude to them. You should just nicely
It's also
tell
how
them.
most people shuffle that have like very bad dexterity. Like, I mean, shuffling is like not a very natural thing people can do.
Yes.
Pile shuffling, like anybody can do that.
Mhm.
I think in most people it's like a skill thing, you know? Like that's why they pile shuffle. I don't think it's a superstition. I think that most of the time it's like they physically can't really shuffle their deck, so that's why they pile shuffle.
I've also seen the people super power pile shuffle where they do it like faster than I can look.
Oh, yeah.
That's
like,
me,
okay,
bro.
This
That's
guy
what I'm
could
saying.
totally mash shuffle.
I'm a power shuffler. I get the fucking. I'm dropping them all at the same
It's
time.
like,
Yeah. You're like you're gonna call for slow play, bro. It's over before you can finish that sentence.
Yeah, definitely an interesting point to bring up. I appreciate the comment, Rayo, because I'd much rather have these conversations than just leave it without having discussed it. But yeah, that was the go ahead.
Just to I agree with him. He's totally right. It's an issue that most especially in Lorcana, I think most people are not really informed on. So I think it's good that we talk about this.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on like some of the stuff that I spoke on that was not related to randomization, but related to
Deck
like,
integrity and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like let me know if I'm wrong in Lorcana about like counting the deck, because that previously like that was like, I mean, that's probably the least important part of it, but I've been presented with illegal decks in Flesh and Blood multiple times, like it at pro tours. Like people they're fucking just like their deck block like snags a card and they present a 59 card deck, like it just happened, or like it fell out somewhere, they left it on the table, like you know, we can say all day check your deck, check your sleeves every time in between rounds. 99% of you guys are not going to do that. Even I won't check it every round. Like I might miss a round. You know, maybe I went to time. I got to go take a pee. The bathroom's clogged. Like it's fine. I know. There's one time
I rarely check it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I barely check it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody here is just like fucking check it every time. You check it? Nope. Absolutely not. Yeah. See.
Yeah.
Anyway, when it comes to the deck list, because we're a bit long on time, let's just start looking towards Vegas, the challenge, and talk about what deck we would play. Like, what deck would you play?
I mean,
in that
what do you
tournament?
mean? Would we play? We are going to play.
Wait, you guys are
Birmingham
on
the
Vegas?
same weekend as.
It's the same. It's the same weekend. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. EU. Yeah, EU. Who the fuck? No, I'm kidding. Well, let's talk about what decks we would play for the challenges. So looking at the top list, we can look at Lyon, and we can also look at the SEG cons.
Yeah.
For me, no surprise, I'd be between two lists, and I don't think it's changed since set 4, and that'd be Ruby Amethyst and Blue-Red. I'd probably lean towards Blue-Red. Some of the Blue-Red lists I was looking at from Lyon were particularly interesting. For the most part, this like one Be Prepared. In actually the top list by Q.
Do you know why that is though, Brennan, for the meta right now? So the less B preps in the decks for the most part, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is it's because it's not only because Pete's in the meta, but like Pete is now a card that can basically shut down a card like B prep. And I think a lot of the red-blue decks have switched to not fully relying on the Sisu as the board clear, but maybe finding it as like a board clear option that's less interrupted by the opponent. Moyen, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Is that the reason?
Totally.
Yep.
I think especially Daisy and some more action hate has made red-blue players go more towards Sisu instead of B-Prep as their primary board clear. I think still most lists are maybe on like two-ish B-Prep.
B-preps, yeah.
So one is still a little bit of an outlier.
Yeah, I mean that's what I noticed is the one B prep and the 4 big Sisus in this list. So just interesting in meta context. How do you feel like the blue red Amber Steel matchup goes right now?
I think red blue's favored, but probably by a little bit less than it used to be. I think the games on the draw got much worse to win because most Ember Steelists are like on a few daisies and a few piglets. And if they open daisy and two piglet, that generates so much early lore that sometimes can be harder to stabilize later. So it's not as easy to go to 0 for red blue. But still, they're more likely to win their game on the draw than Ember Steelists to win their game on the draw, in my experience. One thing, but there's a few things that can still help out either deck. Ember Steel, yes, Daisy Piglets help, but so do Flutes. To try to win their game on the draw, especially if they're on a few Flutes, maybe World's Greatest Criminal Mind to start out the game a little bit. That's one way they can go about things. For red blue, it's how well can they interact with early Daisy, but with the Daisy Piglet opener, you kind of want to interact with the Piglet first. So Brawl is kind of decent for that purpose, and then late game, how well can you dodge the Pete hate, and then how many ice block Sisus can you afford to run?
Yeah, and I think that the Cusco in the blue red deck as well has can maybe help out a little bit more against the flutes. I know previously, Brendan, you were just every time we talked about like the Amber Seal stuff, you're like, put Judy back in the deck, put her back in. But
yeah, so I think right now flutes aren't super popular, but yeah, if they get more popular, red blues also decently equipped to sometimes answer those.
Yeah, for sure. I am really curious because I think I actually asked you before this podcast, Moyen, and if there's anyone in the comments that's a big player of the kind of red blue item list, probably like similar to that like Prince John we were talking about before, but basically the shell of what the winner of Bologna was running. I'd be really interested to see some high performing versions of that list, because from my knowledge, I think it's really good into the mirror. I think it's just a faster deck, so it's kind of a mirror breaker, and I'm curious to see people's thoughts on how that specific deck lines up into the current set 5 metagame, because I mean like it's not so far away from the metagame that was in Bologna. Sure, we had the green steel stuff, which was a big difference, but besides that, there was still maybe not as many normal blue-red decks, but definitely a lot of amber steel for sure. So I'm curious to see what people think of that build in the current meta, and some optimized versions of that deck list I'm excited to look at as well.
I think that is good. I think it just might be worse against amber steel. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, yes, that's kind of Ruby Sapphire. Is there any other decks, Brendan, that you want to
I wanted to ask you in particular, Kawa, like what fucking Emerald deck are you going to play?
Well, I think you probably already know the answer to that. What do you think I'm going to play, Brendan?
Emerald Amber.
Yeah, I'm going to play Amber. Yeah. I think I'm pretty much locked in at this stage. I've been like testing it a bunch still. I've changed, I think I've literally only changed like 2 cards from the set 4 version to the set 5 version. It was really funny because I remember for the side events at Toronto, I played one side event and everyone was running set 5 decks. I didn't have a set 5 deck, so I just brought my Amber Emerald. I still did pretty good. So like I don't know, I feel confident with it. Like I said, I was in a weird spot because I think before this weekend, I was kind of put the deck to the side. I didn't really respect it, but I think it can still do pretty decently in this general metagame. I thought previously its worst matchup in set 4 at least was Amber Steel. It probably is still its worst matchup, but like there are just like games that you can win. I think the more I've played the matchup, I don't find it to be like absolutely unbeatable. I think against red,
it might be the most played deck in Birmingham.
Well, this is the thing. I don't know if it's good. Like, it will be probably one of the most played. It's gonna be that, or it's gonna be red blue. And I think into red blue, Amber Emerald is actually really good. Except it all depends on that. You really need to remove the Sisu from their hand. If you can do the turbo discard on their Sisu, if they draw the Sisu at the optimal time, it literally just destroys the board. So as long as you have the Diablo or the Prince John to keep your card draw engine going, maybe you establish a Cove to then protect from the Sisu later in the stage. I think it's fine. I think it's still good into red purple, which was like its best matchup in set 4. I've heard some people say it's not great into green purple. I think it's actually okay into green purple. Green purple can go fast, but if you just know your particular game plan against that deck, I think it can do quite well. But yeah, Yeah, it's honestly right now it's probably the deck I'm gonna bring, and that could change within the next week and a half. But I still think it's a fine bring personally.
I really think Amber Steel will be the most played deck.
Yeah, I agree. I would say like Ember Steel most played deck.
Why do you
and
guys
likely Red
think?
Blue, Red Blue.
And I think maybe some people just think it's straight up more powerful. But in my opinion, if I think like Amber Steel is just going to be the most played deck, I don't know. I just naturally I just want to play Red Blue. Like, do you think more people will just hop on Amber Steel more than they'd just easily hop onto Red Blue?
I think people with yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that. But I also think that people think Amber Steel can totally beat Red Blue.
Yeah, I mean it's not
And it
it's
can.
not a
They're
blowout.
Really,
It's-
I
Red Blue's
don't know
clever,
about I don't know about like totally, yeah, because like to me, I've seen them beat it, but I think if I'm an Amber Steel player and I sit down and I'm facing a Red Blue, like I'm like this is going to be really tough most of the
I mean,
time.
it's
I would much rather be an Amber Emerald player, or much rather not be the Emerald M player playing against Amber Steel. I feel like that'd be a worse.
Yeah, so
dynamic.
Ember Steel's worst matchups Red Blue, but it's not that bad. So like the other matchups are pretty good of Ember Steel.
Mhm.
So me personally, I think Ember Steel, Red Blue were the two most played decks this entire format so far. I think Red Purple is gaining popularity again in the recent weeks, and Green Purple I think is very well positioned, but doesn't really find enough players picking it up. I think Green Purple would be one of the big reasons, other than Ember Steel also usually being favored into Red Purple, to hold back Red Purple. The one problem is the common Ember Steel build isn't actually that great against Red Purple. The matchup's kind of close. When the Red Purple can also be running Elsas, they're often playing some 1-3s. And then playing Daisy and questing and into a build that plays 4 Fox and a few Crabs, you can easily give them some card advantage. And if you can't wheel early, fall, then Red Purple will start to stabilize kind of quickly. So I think that matchups with current builds, no flutes, and the early daisies, it's kind of close. But I think there's good dynamics between Ember Steel, Red Purple, Green Purple, and Red Blue, and all of those decks are good brings, which definitely doesn't mean there isn't other decks you can bring that are also completely fine in an open field like this. Like there's Sapphire Steel, Amethyst Steel, probably more that I'm forgetting.
Yeah. How's Red Purple and the Blue Red now? Since Blue Red starts to cut some of the brawls and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Red Purple didn't really get better as a deck. Red Blue did. Red Blue gained more consistent turn 2 ramp and more consistent late game with the visions. So
It also gained Cusco as just another tech option,
I guess
right? Yeah.
3-drop Sisu if you're running a critical mass of ice blocks is not bad into the Flynn
that
line.
can help. But generally, I think the matchup is still pretty good for Red Purple if Red Blue doesn't play any Flynn hate. But if Flynn maybe plays some 2-strength character in the early game, or maybe also a few copies of Brawl or high enough density of Iceblock Sisu, matchup's still pretty close.
Yeah, I feel like Red Purple is kind of the Red Purple to me feels like it might be a really good, like you're trying to be like one step ahead of the meta kind of meta pick. I know it emerged here at SCGCon and it kind of showed its hand, but it feels like it could be potentially very well positioned. And I feel like it might be slightly behind to take a deck that's weak to Amber Steel in particular. Amber Steel seems very, very I think it will be the most popular deck.
Yeah, no, I probably agree. Yeah.
Moyen, let's just close with what would you play if you had to pick right now?
If I'd have to pick right now, it's Red Blue, but that's my answer at most stages. But so far in 3 DLCs, like at most stages of the set, of any set. But so
Are
far
you still yet to play a Red Blue? Or you have played it once, right? You played in bottom.
Green Purple, then Red Blue, then Sapphire Steel. So I'm still open. I'm still like exploring all the options. But if you'd ask me at any point, usually the answer is Red Blue.
Yeah, I think I would play Red Purple. I'd probably net deck one of these lists from SCGCon as well. They look pretty solid, so that's where I'm at. Anyway, all right. Well, if you enjoy this podcast, number one thing you can do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Video version of this on YouTube if you want to see our faces, unlike our commenter for last week. That's on youtube.com/@Podcana podcast. Hit subscribe. Well, you're there. Deck list links in the description. Also, you can just follow along on Inkdex. It's usually where we get a lot of our lists from. Twitter's are BrendanAPG, at Moyen_HS, at Kavlatech_CG. And until next time, we will see you in the next one. We'll see you next week.